guys. Um, Arsenal go away to Inter Milan and take another 3 points in the Champions League. I feel like Arsenal should play in the Champions League every week at this point. Let me get my stand, because these teams in Europe, they just come out to play, man. They don't sit deep like what we see week in, week out in the Premier League. So that's helpful, if I'm being honest, to have teams that want to come out and play football. Hold on. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Yeah. So I'm watching the Champions League post-match event here. A couple of things that were nice about watching this Arsenal game today was the use of the squad. Been crying out about that, wanting Arteta to use more of the squad. In my last episode of the FootyNotes podcast, I was talking about how he needs to rotate the midfield a little bit more, because in the Premier League especially, you need a bit more bite in midfield to be able to get the advantage that you can in games. And I think what he did today was good. Got minutes for Eze. I would have liked to see him get 90 minutes. But an hour of minutes for Eze is better than no minutes. So, and he was playing in the midfield. So Eze in midfield with Merino and Zubimendi. That was good. That was really good. Hey, thank you for joining. I was happy for the changes in the back as well, because, to be honest, I expected Arteta to go very strong for this game, because that's what he does at this point in his Arsenal career. It looks like he has a point to prove every time he goes to face a big team. So, a back four of Miles Lewis-Skelly, who was in need of minutes, Christian Mosquera, who's been out for more than a month, William Saliba, and Jurian Timber. That's what they started with at the back. David Raya in goal. I think everybody was happy to see that instead of Kepa, because Kepa will probably play again in the Carabao Cup against Chelsea. And then, yeah, in midfield, like I said, was a midfield three of Eze, Zubimendi, and Merino. That was really good. And then up front, it was Gabriel Jesus with Saka and Trossard on either side of him. And that was also a really good use of the squad, because over the weekend, none of those front three started. So he made 7 changes to the team that started over the weekend at Nottingham Forest. And I think that's key, especially when you want to go again this week in the Premier League to play against a Manchester United team that is going to be well rested. United hasn't played since they hammered Manchester City in the early kickoff on Saturday. So, what up, Kevin? So yeah, man, it's just one of those things. I think we need to see more of this from Mikel Arteta. Hey guys, thank you for joining. I'm talking football over here. I'm happy to answer some of your chats as well as I go on. But yeah, the Champions League is a tournament that suits Arsenal very well because of the depth of their squad. Yeah, please hype, subscribe, my friends. Appreciate you. But yeah, the team that he went with today did an exceptional job, away in Italy against the leading team in Serie A. 7 changes and you still handle it well. And Inter played hard. It was not a 3-1 game in terms of the difference in the quality of teams. Inter played really well, but Arsenal were just that much better. Thoughts on the Bears, Kristen? I'm very proud of the way they played. Actually, like I have a small connection to Chicago. I stayed there as a youngster, and I think the season was always going to end at some point without them winning because I think the Seahawks are the best team in the NFC. But the Bears did well, I think. Like, what are your thoughts on the Bears? I think they did well considering it was the first year coach and Caleb Williams had the kind of season he had last year. That's kind of like my new guy observation in American football. I don't watch a lot of American football. I'm more into this football. And and so yeah, like Arsenal secure a top two position at this point because next week they playing against Kairat at home. And to be honest, that now that game is a nothing game. You might even see some youngsters there. I don't know if Ethan Nwaneri is going to be still at Arsenal come middle of next week because by most reports, if it's to be trusted, he's going to France to play for Marseille. But sticking with this game today, I think Ethan could have actually traveled. Maybe that's a sign that he's really out of Arsenal at the moment until June. Because yeah, this was a good game for rotation and all the rotational options. More so than they've done in the cups. They did really well today. I think all the players who came in had a good game. I'm very happy with what Christian Mosquera was able to do in those 18 minutes or so that he had on the field. I think he's so good on the ball, and he's so his quickness. He's got quick feet. He steps in. He's really front-footed, and he's very. He's a good combination of the way Gabriel and Saliba approach center back play. And so yeah, it was good to see Mosquera back for the first time in about a month, and hopefully Calafiori is not too far behind, and that Arsenal can get Ricardo Calafiori back in the team as well, because this is the 10th game in the month of January, or something like that. No, it's not the 10th game. I think they're playing 10 games in January. They still have Manchester United and they have Kairat. I think they're playing 10 or 11 games. So it's a tight schedule, and so using your squad very well is really, really good. Omara Al-Hajri. Omara Al-Hajri. I don't know how to say it because it's all spelled together. I don't know if that's two names that have been merged for a username. All right, my friends. So PSG got upset by Sporting Lisbon. I think PSG, like last year, didn't start the season really well in the Champions League. It looks like, but they're going to be in a better position than they were last year. I think they had to play into the last 16 places, but this year it looks like they still have it in their hands to make the top 8. So going into game week 8 in the Champions League, PSG should have it in their hands to qualify. I think Manchester City had a shocking result today, but I think they will also make the top 8. They had a shocking result today against Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt is good, but I was surprised that City went down 3-0 to them. I don't think they're that good. I also noticed that Tottenham got themselves a win at home against Borussia Dortmund, 2-0. Solanke and Romero. So Guys, I don't talk politics. I'm sorry. I only just talk sports. I don't really discuss politics on when I'm on this channel. Spurs winning is good for Thomas Frank. I said in my last podcast that he needs to win maybe four or five of the next five, or for the next 6 or 7 games. And hello, Brian. Welcome. Please like, hype, subscribe, share the content. Welcome to the channel, guys. I think Thomas Frank is in desperate need of wins, and I think he did well to get one today, because that delays the noise around his role, and people are not wrongfully kind of like talking about the status of his role at Spurs, and that Spurs may have to let him go. And a trusted reporter in David Ornstein reported recently, actually as recent as this last weekend, that it's a matter of when, not if, this man is going to get sacked. So good for him that he got the win. He's got a tough run of fixtures coming up, so that's going to be a really, it's going to be a hard one to come out of it. But if he's still the manager of Spurs at the end of February, he'll probably make it to the end of the season. It's just that I'm not sure he will be at the end of February the manager, because they got a lot of games against difficult opponents. I think they have like Liverpool, Manchester City, and Arsenal in their next 3 or 4 Premier League games. And Newcastle might be another one of those games. So it's a tough stretch for Thomas Frank. I feel for that team, and hopefully they can get some results, except for maybe when they play Arsenal. So yeah, Champions League it's so nice to watch, non-Premier League football, because there's a lot more offensive endeavor from both teams, and in the Premier League, teams tend to sit deep. I learned a very interesting number yesterday about the number of 0-0 draws in the Premier League that have already taken place this season. And that number is 18, and that's already more than they had last year, which was okay, Amiga, like to Sky. Do I think Arsenal will perform as good as they are right now until the end of the season? However, both of us know that there will be a second place. Oh, that's a good one. I don't know, man. Like, I think there's enough, for me anyway, there's enough room for me to think that Arsenal will get better. I don't think they've been good so far in terms of the going the other way. I think they've been good consistently as a defensive team, except for maybe those 3 to 4 weeks when they didn't have either Gabriel or Saliba. I think outside of those 3 or 4 weeks, Arsenal have looked mean as a defensive team. My belief, and maybe hope, is that they will get better as an offensive team. I really hope so, because whether they finish second in the Premier League or not, that's gonna smell bad. That's gonna smell really bad for Mikel Arteta, and I hope for his sake and for all of our Arsenal fans' sake that they can see it over the line this year. It is gonna take one of those front line players getting hot though. Like Gabriel Jesus getting a couple goals today, Martinelli getting a hat trick. I know it was against Portsmouth. They're gonna need players in those front three positions to get. And I think several of those players in those front three positions are going to need to get between 10, 15, maybe between 15 and 20 goals, 1 or 2 players. So I think Gyökeres, Jesus, Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard. Madueke doesn't seem like a goal scorer at this point in his career, but I think those guys are going to need to really do better in scoring goals for Arsenal. And I think it's in them to get better. The way they've played so far, Arsenal have played 22 games in the Premier League and their leading goal scorer is on 5 goals. That can't continue, So I think there's room for improvement there, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it was good to see Eze today, in a midfield position, because we haven't seen that much of him in the Premier League. So yeah, like I'm very, very happy to see that the health is getting better, because with better health and more fit players, that means Arsenal will continue to be able to not overuse player, because like that's one of the problems they've had every season before this one under Mikel Arteta, when they've had meaningful football to play in the spring. So hopefully, let me see what else is in the chat. Uh-huh. I don't know if this is the last year they have to get the Premier League, but I agree with you in that, like, it's Arteta's probably biggest opportunity to get the Premier League now this year, because all of these players still believe. I don't think a team has finished second place 4 times in a row. And so that would be really hard to recover from if they finished, especially after buying about 8 players last summer, in addition to a squad that was really good. I don't think people are going to have any interest in listening to excuses if Arsenal don't win the Premier League this year. And I think people inside Arsenal are not going to be interested in hearing the excuses if Arsenal don't win the Premier League this year. So you're right. You're right about that. I don't know if this squad will be, you know, done in terms of chances to win the Premier League, because, like, I can also see, I don't think Arteta should be fired. First of all, let me just start by saying that. But I think I can see a world where, let's say, if he does get fired, a different coach comes in and wins with this squad immediately, almost like Arne Slot did with Liverpool last year, with a team that was basically all of Klopp's players. Because sometimes in sports, the message can get stale. So I get that, you know what I mean? So, like, I think the players are good enough to have another go in the Premier League next year or in 2 years even, because all of them are still within a good age range. I don't think from that point of view this is their last chance to have a go, but it might be the last chance to have a go with them and Arteta. Because I don't know what next year, I know his contract is expiring 2027. But I don't know what that would look like, man. I mean, like, it would be really, really hard for him. I think fans might be booing in the stadium. I think, I think they have to do it this year, even if they have to crawl over the line. They have to do it this year. Doesn't have to be sexy. They have to win the Premier League one time, and then, who knows what happens after that, right? Like, because if they win one, I can see between now and 2030, Arsenal getting one more, maybe 2 more Premier Leagues. So this year is pivotal. I really believe so. I think these players need to believe as well that they have enough in the building to get over the line, you know. So I don't know if that answers your, or that kind of connects to what you were saying as well in the chat, but like, that's my view on it. I think Arteta is a good coach. I think the problem for him is he's been there 6 years now, and the last time he won anything was in the first 6 months he was there. So yeah, like, it's gonna be one of those where the club and him are gonna have to figure out a way between now and the end of the year to get some silverware, because it's gonna be hard to move forward without, like, proper silverware. We live in times where there's very little forgiveness for underperformance. And I don't think Arteta has underperformed in the previous seasons. But I think not winning trophies this year, Premier League or Champions League, I think it will be a letdown. It will be a letdown. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some players starting to leave the project if they can't win. Because you can only, you know what I mean? Then you end up having like a Spurs Pochettino situation where it becomes untenable and your top players start to age, and then you have to rebuild the squad and you haven't won anything. it's hard for owners to keep giving money when they don't see total output. So anyway, I am I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I think I like the way the leadership with Ateta are working together. I like the news I've been reading about Ethan Nwaneri, whose loan. I was happy to see that because the kid does need to play. I know he's only 18, but he needs to be playing. He's had the exposure now. And in Roberto De Zerbi, they have a really good coach who's good with player development, who has a very IQ, for the game. And so, hopefully Nwaneri gets game time there. Hopefully, his preparation to this point allows him to settle in Marseille, playing with good players, Aubameyang and Mason Greenwood. So he'll have people who can speak English in the locker room immediately. The coach can speak a bit of English too. I know it's France, but like, I think it'll be good for Ethan to have that exposure, get away from home, get out of Arsenal, and get some valuable football minutes in men's football under a really, really good football coach. So I'm happy for the kid. Hopefully he stays healthy and plays. Permata Saka and the youth development program at Arsenal has been good at like looking after these kids and trying to make sure that they're building good humans or good people to go out into the world, even if they don't make it in the world of football. However, I think we haven't been good at using the loan system, and so this is one of the better ones. And funny enough, William Saliba was also on loan at Marseille. So it's a club we've worked with before, with a very, very important player to our project. So there's hope there that they can continue to be a good partner for loaning players to them, and they're playing in the Champions League and they're playing at the top tier of French football. So it's not the worst of loans. I'm very happy that like this has been something both clubs are willing to do, and I know there'll be a loan fee, but I don't really care too much about like the money for the loan. The one thing that I want the most from a loan is for it to be a success for the player. Because if it's a success for the player, then if Arsenal don't want to keep Ethan, he will have been on the shop window for 6 months, and you can get money for him. The hope, of course, is that the player comes back to Arsenal and is reintegrated into the squad. But I don't, I don't want to make assumptions about what happens when he's done with the loan. Yeah, I don't know what else from today's football news is worth talking about. But I appreciate you guys for joining in. Please subscribe, like, hype the channel. And I'm trying to do more of these live recordings. I actually record a podcast, but it takes a lot of editing and all these different other things. And sometimes I just want to hop on and just chat with people live. And so I'm kind of new in this kind of content creation space, but been consistently creating now since the second half of last year, so I'll be popping in, chatting with you a lot. So if you enjoy chatting sports, yeah, this is a good space as long as people are not being ridiculous and being abusive, because that's the other thing I don't like about people online is sometimes they feel brave enough to just talk nonsense with people they don't know, and that's been a bit weird to get used to, as a grown up, but that's part of the world. Man, like seriously, as long as you have a valid account on YouTube or Google, you can just start a channel and use your phone to record. It's obviously a space that has a lot of people, and everyone has something to say, and everybody has their own approach to it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. however, I do like it when people are not being abusive to others. Like I think that's the one line that I don't ever want to cross. But yeah, as long as you feel like you have something worthy to share, man, like just get an account with Google and press record. At least that's my approach. You know what I mean? I don't know everything, and I'm not perfect. I try to read books here and there, but sometimes I feel like that stops me from getting in front of the camera and just doing my thing. And and also, like, you want to be as authentic as you can. At least that's what I try to do. So sometimes it's good not to just listen to every single video or podcast out there before you record. I still want to listen to them, of course, because I don't think I know better than everybody else. But it's good if I'm going to record something, especially after watching a game or something like that. I try to do my recording first before I go listen to what other people are saying. But sometimes I do enjoy. I won't lie. I'll listen to kind of like other creators just for a good laugh, and just to see what different people are doing in terms of like what their signature is and how it is that they approach their craft. And people are smart out there. A lot of smart people that you can learn from, and I'm trying to take that approach as well. Always trying to learn, always trying to get better. So anyway, do you think they will bring Girassi to the team or it's needed? No, I don't think Arsenal will bring anybody, man, in this January window, if I'm being honest. Unless they have 3 or 4 injuries in the front line or in the midfield, or you know what I mean. Like, I think they can have injuries as long as it's one player in different positions. But if it's like a couple of defenders or a couple of strikers, I think they may then bring players. But like, I don't think Arsenal has money that they can spend without selling anyone. And the reason I'm saying that is because in the agreement for Nkapie, they agreed to sign him as a loan so that they can stay within the financial fair play rules. So, you don't do a deal like that if you are not in financial, like walking a tightrope with financial fair play. Seiru Girassi I think would be a good player, but like, I think at this point we kind of have to ride with Gyökeres. He hasn't worked out so far, but I think Arsenal are just going to have to ride it out with him and Havertz and Jesus and live with the results. So anyway, thank you so much for joining, guys. I am going to hop off of this one, and I'll be hopping on again after the next round of Champions League games. Cheers.